All right, MIDI class, this is project 4. We're adding harmony to a new sequence, and we're going to start with an explanation of the chords that you find in a major key. We've done this before, where I just draw the scale, and then basically I'm just going to create triads on top of each note of the scale. So that's a third above and a third above. Building snowmen in thirds. And when we do these sort of music theory analysis, we assign them Roman numerals like this. And the Roman numerals actually tell us a little bit about the type of chord that they are. So the large or uppercase Roman numeral means a major chord, lowercase means a minor chord. And in a major key, this is C major. In a major key, we have major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and the 7 is actually a diminished chord, which is why it has the little degree mark there. So there are really 4 possible chord types. There's major, minor, diminished, which is what we have there on the 7, and then there's a thing called an augmented chord. Making sure I can see it. And the augmented chord is not something that occurs naturally in a major key, but you will find it in other places. So I'm a little hesitant to show you, the anatomy of this because I'm not sure exactly how important it is for the purpose of this project. But essentially, each one of these chords is made up of the component parts of a root, a third, and a fifth. So the root is this C on the bottom here. And then when I do the third above, it goes there. The next note we call the fifth. So when we label chords, especially as we get beyond this sort of root, third, and fifth, you might see numbers like a 7 on a chord, or a 9, or even 11, or even a 13. That just means that those additional notes, that's how far they are from the root. So when it comes to just the triad part, that's the bottom 3 notes, there's really 4 possibilities: major, minor, diminished, and augmented. And essentially, it goes like this. And I'll just do this quick and we won't worry about it too much. But a major chord means that the distance from the root to the third is major. And then the root to the fifth is a perfect fifth. A minor chord would mean that the distance, and I'll do a D minor chord. Here the root is a D and the third is an F. The distance between D and F is a minor third. Look at the piano. We started earlier on a C, and we did E, which was a major third. If we count the half steps from C to E, it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So E is 4 half steps higher than C, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 half steps gives us a major third. Cool. The second one I wrote down for you was D to F. And if we count the half steps, starting from here, we have 1, 2, 3. So D to F is 3 half steps, which is a minor third. All right, so there's a difference in the way they sound. In fact, let me just show you just on the C. Here's the major third. Kind of happy sounding. If I go just 3 half steps, it sounds different, right? So, back to here. Major triad has a major third on the bottom and a perfect fifth. Minor triad has a minor third for the bottom interval and a perfect fifth. The diminished has minor on the bottom, and then if I can just adjust, I'm going to lower this note here. And then we have a minor third and a diminished fifth. So diminished triad is a minor third and a diminished fifth. Can you guess what the augmented chord is? Maybe I'll build this on C. C, E, G, that's a major chord. It's got a major third and a perfect fifth. If we were to raise the fifth up and make it augmented fifth, then the whole triad is an augmented triad. It's a major third and an augmented fifth. Look, it doesn't really matter, I don't think at this point, to understand fully the anatomy of a chord, but that's it, just to prove that it's a real thing, and I'm not just blowing smoke. So within the C major key, if we do all the chords, these are the types that we have. Okay, I hope that is clear. I just don't want to spend too much time on stuff that doesn't matter right now. So the second thing I want to show you is how we would notate the chord symbol notation for chords in a major key. This is kind of like a music analysis version. And then the more popular sort of, pop music, whatever, chord symbol notation involves writing the root. So that's just the bottom note. Okay. And then adding a suffix. And the suffix is the thing that describes what kind of a chord it is, if it's major, minor, augmented, or diminished. And the convention says that if it's a major chord, we don't even need to write a root. We can just leave it like it is, just C. And it's understood that C is C major. That's cool. If it's a minor chord, we tend to add a minus sign. So for the 2 and the 3, we're going to add a minus sign, which means minor. So D minor, E minor. This is major, G is major, the 6 is minor, so we add the minus sign to the 6. The 7 is the diminished chord, so that one we're going to put a little degree mark, like that. So there are the chord symbol notations that we would find in popular music. If, for instance, we had an augmented chord, just as a matter of finishing out the set, we would notate that. I'll do a C augmented chord. There's different ways. I tend to use the plus sign because it's kind of the opposite of the minus and it's simple. Some people also write it as C, A, U, G, C augmented. Okay. So those are the chords in the key of C major. So for this project, what we want to do is create a chord progression. And that just means that we're going to move from one chord to the next. It's not a big deal. And the truth is that you could almost move to any chord in the key of C and it would sort of work. I mean, it's kind of hard to screw it up. It's not going to be, horrible. Some progressions are stronger than others. And I would say as a general rule, it's nice to sort of start on the 1 and maybe end up on the 1 because to me, harmony is kind of a little trip that we take. We start at our home, we go to school, we go to work, we go to the grocery store, or wherever. I guess right now we're not going anywhere, but you know what I mean. And then you complete this pathway, and then eventually you like to come home again. So I've given some possible chord progressions on the project sheet that you're welcome to use, or you can come up with your own. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just use one of these as an example. But I want to show you what it looks like on the keyboard itself. And then we'll go to the DAW and we'll actually sequence the project. So let's just pick one of these. And I'm going to just do, I don't know, maybe number 3, 2, 5, 1, 6. And notice that on the 5 chord, it says 5, 7. All that means is that we're adding that extra note on the 5. So the 5 chord we call the dominant chord. And a dominant chord is either the 5 of any key, but it's also a chord that has this particular note arrangement, which is that it's a major triad and it's got an added minor 7th. So the distance from G to F is a minor 7. So we call this a G7 chord or a 5-7 chord. And we call that the dominant chord. The first chord we call the tonic chord. And the strongest chord progression in music is to go from dominant to tonic. Sounds like this. Here's 5. And and here's 1. So sometimes you'll hear this at the end of a piece of music where they really want you to go home. They'll just kind of beat it into your brain. Right? That means go home. So that's the strongest progression. And sometimes we save that for the end of a phrase so that people will know, oh, I guess we're back home again. So let's do number 3, which is 2, 5, 1, 6. Okay. So I'm going to write that on the chart here. All right, so the progression is going to be 2, 5, 1, 6. Cool, you can see it. So in the key of C, what does that look like? Well, it looks like this. The 2 in the key of C is D minor. The 5/7 is G7. The 1 is C. And the 6 is A minor. And because, let's just say that we're going to play it in 4/4 time, I'm going to kind of mark the time with these slashes, telling me that I'm playing 4 beats for each chord. Okay? So if I play this on the piano, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm playing each chord for 4 beats. So let me show you physically how to play these on a keyboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by playing them in root position. Okay, so maybe down below here. Root position just means that the root, the name of the chord, that note, is going to be on the bottom, just like the root of a tree. I'm going to write them all out in root position, like that. Okay? So the bottom note, the one that I darkened in, that's the root. And I'm going to basically put my thumb on the root. So the D chord, D is the root. I'm going to put my thumb on a D, and I'm going to play every other note on the keyboard. I'm just skipping notes. 1, 2, 3. All right? So I'm just kind of making this claw shape with my hand, and I'm just going to lay my thumb on the root, 3rd and 5th. So that's the D minor chord. And if I want to play the G chord, just the basic version of it, I'm just going to put my thumb on a G, which is right here, and I'm going to play that, every other note. If I want to play G7, I might have to adjust my fingers so I can reach it, but I'm just going to follow the same pattern. Right, there's the 7. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. The 1 chord is a C chord. So that's the claw starting on a C. And then the A chord, A minor, you could go all the way up to A here and play it there. Or you could actually go down to an A as well, right? Here's C, B, A. So here they are in root position. D minor to G7 to C down to A. And if you play them that way, that's fine. You could play them all in root position and it would be perfectly acceptable. But I'd like to show you how often we will play chords in a musical context that sounds maybe a little bit better. And if you don't get this part, you can skip it. I don't care. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert the chords. I'm going to play them so that they're not in root position. And it's going to make for what we consider better voice leading, meaning that we don't have to jump as far from note to note in order to play the chords. So I'm going to start with the D minor chord. That's root position. But when I go to the G7, instead of moving my entire hand all the way up here and playing that super high F all the way up there, right, that sounds really far, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these notes and I'm just going to move them down by 1 octave. So let's take, for instance, maybe the B and the D and the F. And let's put them down here. Same notes, right? Just down an octave. And if I play it that way, then I can play the chord down here, which is really close to the first chord. Here's D minor. Here's G7. And I don't have to move my hand very far, and the notes sound like they belong together better. So again, we call this inverting the chord. We're playing it upside down, but the notes haven't changed. I'm playing exactly the same notes, but I'm just putting them in a different order. Okay, so here's D minor. Here's an inverted G7 chord. Here's the C chord in root position. And then we can go down and we can play the A here. And that sounds pretty good. I suppose you could play it here as well, right? That would be even smoother. So one more time, D minor, root position, G7, inverted, C major, root position, and how about A minor, inverted, okay? So it sounds very central. It stays in one spot. Your hand doesn't have to move, and it's considered better voice leading. So if you want to try that, that's great. But if you want to go all root position, that's cool too. Okay, then real quick, my left hand. All I'm going to do with my left hand is just play whatever the root is of each chord. So when we look at the progression here, the root for D minor is D, the root for G7 is G. No matter what I play with my right hand, even if I do an inversion in my right hand, I'm still going to play the root with my left hand. So let me show it to you first, all in root position. Here's D minor, and in my left hand I play a D. Here's G7, and in my left hand I play G. And look, it's an octave below, right? Here's the chord, here's the bass note. So for the bass notes, they have to be down here in the lower end of the keyboard for them to really be bass notes. But we're just doubling whatever the root is. Then we go to C. I play a C in the bass, and then A minor. If I play inversions, my right hand is going to play inversions. So when I get to the G chord, I might play this. But my left hand, I'm still going to play a G. Okay? That might be kind of confusing, but you'll get used to it. You'll figure it out. Just take some practice. Here's the C chord, root position, playing a C in the bass, and then down to A minor. My right hand is playing an inversion, but my left hand is playing the root A. Okay. So in order to sequence a chord progression, you obviously have to be able to play a chord progression. So hopefully this kind of helps. And while I'm at the piano, I just want to show you one more thing that's going to come up later in the project. And that is the difference between playing a block chord versus playing an arpeggio. So if I just take a C chord and I play all the notes together at the same time, that's considered a block chord. Just like the way I've been doing it so far. If I play the notes of the chord, but I play them in a sequence like this, that's called an arpeggio. And you could do that for all the chords. What's going to happen in the project is that you're going to create a track, a harmony track, where you play the chords as block chords. And you might create another different track with a different voice where you play the same chords, but instead of playing them as block, you're going to play them as arpeggios, right? So, and then the two things will kind of fit together very nicely and sort of not get in each other's way. So again, block chord, arpeggio.